Hello, my name is Michelle Ray, and I'm a current student at Liberty University. This presentation is for my Psych 516 course. So let's get into it. So the title of this is The Productive and Counterproductive Behaviors in the Workplace. So the question asks, how have recent historical events affected the course of research in organizational psychology? So what I'm going to do is give you an example or several examples of the historical events. So the first thing around 2020 is when the COVID-19 pandemic came about. And so in turn, this is what forced many organizations, as big organizations that I work for, like i.e. the government, they had to quickly adapt to the work arrangements. So this shifted like a big surge in research on remote works because many organizations have never had an abundant amount of employees move to telework. That is what the government uses, telework concept. And so this is an effect where the employees were being like, the productivity and the organizational culture. So, say for instance, they're at home or remoting, now this is a conscious effort that that person has to get up, log in, and say and let the organization know that they're, alive and well and that they're working. And so this shifted the culture for the organizational psychologists, because they explored the dynamics of the virtual work dynamics. And so this is where Microsoft Teams came into play because Microsoft Teams allowed people to log in, have meetings. They could also see the employers, and have meetings and talk about the current workload. It also kind of gave them a measurement of who was online and who wasn't online. And they created these step-by-step occurrences inside the Microsoft Teams. So the Microsoft Teams, I mentioned that because it was a highlight of, for me, the government workforce used it heavily to help create products, and also just keep that one-on-one with the employee and the employer. Also during this time, the mental health and the well-being during the pandemic brought about the mental health of some people because now they're being forced to stay at home, versus being more, out and about and going to work, daily. So the studies have focused on the impacts of the remote work. So a lot of people felt isolated. There were a lot of issues between, marriages, the children's to the parents. So there was like a massive shift in the mental health because it really opened up the doors to the emphasis on the interventions and the support systems within the organization. So say for instance, I had an employee that was at home who was not used to being at home. Now they're at home with their children, and they're faced with the adversity of doing the actual 9 to 5 per se with that child or children from beginning, the time that they wake up until they go to bed, and they're with them all day, helping them with their studies. They're, giving them lunch. They're also taking care of their normal daily duties, i.e. if they're working. So it caused a lot of mental stress and anxiety for most people. So moving on to the global economic crisis. So this affected the job insecurities and the well-being. So the economic crisis kind of like forced the impact on job security and employee well-being. So the researchers in the organizational psychology had investigated the psychological of the job insecurity, the layoffs, so the downsizing. So this was a massive impact for those who have been working jobs for 10, 20 years. Now they're laying off because now they see the benefit of being able to work from home and still get the workload that they wanted to accomplish within their organization. Also produce the numbers that they are acquired, with a smaller amount of the workforce. So this in turn, it really impacted a lot of people who may have been laid off during that time. And so This really helped with the uncertainties of the economic crisis. Lastly, the hashtag Me Too movement, which started in 2017, but now to present. So this opened up the gender and workplace dynamics. So the hashtag Me Too movement, which gained a lot of momentum in 2017, what it began to do was like shed light on all the issues related to sexual harassment and gender dynamics within the workplace. So the organizational psychologists, the research responded by going into the workplace, exploring all the gender biases, um, power dynamics, and strategies for creating a safer and more equitable, workplace. So, for example, there was a couple newscast members who was faced with that, where they were, you know, discriminating against certain females or vice versa. So it just allowed the organizational psychologists to really go inside the workplace and really look at the workplace and say, hey, are we really are treating people fairly within the workplace? So this really opened up the doors for the organizational psychologists to go in and really get some work numbers and really get a chance to talk to the people and get, their opinions about how things are at that particular workplace. And that was chapter one. That was the cover for chapter one, for the research for the recent event history. So chapter three talks about us describing the socialization process for graduate students in our program. So is the program successfully socializing newcomers and creating job embeddedness? So again, the graduate student in our program is the industrial and organizational psychology. So for me, the orientation and introduction to the field, for me, it introduced me to the field of IO. And that's where you take all the core courses, just like 510s, 515s. And during that orientation, to me, was a really big orientation because it gave you an outlook on what you would do, like pulling all the statistical data, looking at all the key theories behind organizational and industrial psychology and like the core concept, within that discipline. So it quickly integrated us, graduate students, into knowing really how important our job will be once we're at, degree completion, and how pertinent our job is to go in there and pull that statistical data and look at that workforce and examine it, and to really see where the issues are, be it leadership or within the organization, and to help them get to a better place within their organization and reach their organizational goals. The second thing was the academic development. So the graduate students would engage in coursework that help build like strong theoretical foundation and research skills. So most of the classes, you would have to do a lot of research. You would have to write a lot of papers. And again, you're dealing with the SPSS, which is, to me, still pulling the statistical data and looking at it from a theoretical theory to say, this is what I have statistically. Now, how do I tie it to this organization? So the academic development, it was challenging, but it's very much worth it. Because again, you get to roll your sleeves up and really get into the foundational part of organizational psychology. So then we get to learn, learn critical evaluation, like research paper, design experiments, and analyze. So we really break down all the different designs of the experiments. And that is like very important because it's not one way. There's several ways you can do experiments. And so that's the beauty of being, in the IO field, that you get to use different experiments to analyze your data. And so the academic development phase is very essential. So this prepares the students to, contribute back to the field. So this is where when I finish my degree, go and find that job or be a consultant, or go out there and get into the workforce and say, hey, I need to really give back and give back to the place where I understand where all my knowledge came from. But now I really need to get into the field and really get a feel of what's going on inside the workplace. So professional development. So the hands-on research and an applied experience, like for me, the professional development really came through me being an online student and examining all of the videos and just the one-on-ones with my professors and my AIs, that this field is very professional, it's very needed, and it's displayed, especially as you're going through your curriculum and you have to watch your videos and you see the professionalism and the care that the AIs give when they're presenting their information. So another thing, we have to work on research projects and, collaborative industrial partners on real world projects. So hopefully I'll get there as well, where we'll do a real world project. But for right now, the research papers itself, to me, they were very challenging, but I really enjoyed them. So that's another part of the socialization process. So internships and practicums. So training in communication and presenting skills and networking. So you also get a chance to go to conferences and publish research and engage with professionalisms in the field. So they frequently will send out a email saying, hey, would you like to be a part of this research? So in turn, that to me itself is like welcoming in the field, because you'll get a chance to really get a feel of what they're doing as the IO professionals themselves. And of course, a mentorship. The mentorship program is amazing. As I was going through my 510 and 515 courses, I was able to reach out to the AIs, Dr. Megan St. Peters, and she was phenomenal. And their academic level and professionalism, their advice, you can reach out to them at any time. So the mentorship program to me is so receiving, and is receiving because they really care about the field in which they are operating in. So that leads me to chapter 4. Chapter 4 says, how can an organization reduce or prevent work-life conflict? I really enjoyed chapter 4 because it really got heavily into what most people experience during the work, family conflicts. So one thing, having an on-site childcare or subsidies will like help the employees access affordable and convenient childcare services. So say for instance, myself, again, being a government employee, most of the time they'll have daycares that's right there by the compound or the building that you're working, and it's specifically for the government employees. So, there may be a waiting list. However, the priority is the government employee to be able to bring their child to that particular facility. And to me, I think that really aids into the care that they have for you as an employee, that say, hey, I will help you to make sure your transition, coming to work is a lot better. And yeah, we'll make it more convenient because we'll make the daycare like right here. So elderly care assistance. So this is where they provide resources and referrals to support the employees caring for family members, i.e. mothers and fathers and elderly uncles, or someone that's just elderly that may need some one-on-one care. So having that, assistance program to me is very important. Me being a retiree, to understand that they have those programs for veterans, which I find to be very, is very useful and very needed. Again, for those that still are contributing to the workforce, but they have an elderly mother or father that's at home. The next thing is the employee assistance program. So they call it EAPs. So EAPs, what it does is provide counseling and support services for employees and their families dealing with personal and family related issues. So this can occur when someone, again, may be forced to telework or work from home. And that might have been some personal conflict and family issues. However, you being at home and being present now, they're really rising and they're really evolving because now you are doing a lot of one-on-ones at home. So the EAP program will help in aid in counseling and say, hey, we understand. So, but come and see us and let's sit down, let's talk. So that moves me to the family and friendly. So this is where they offer flexible work hours, right? So this would allow the employees to adjust their work schedules to accommodate their family needs. So say, for instance, you have children that do after school curriculums, activities, sports, etc. So you can adjust your hours to come in a little bit earlier. So, you'll be able to support your child in their activities after school, i.e. sports, um, and help them move into a better place as well. So this allows them to just help with the school drop off, the doctor's appointments, or family emergencies, because most people do try to schedule their children's work, their after school activities or doctor's appointments after their work time. So this again goes back to the telecommunication option. So this is enabling employees to work remotely when possible. So I know, again, for me as a government employee, I have to go through the EEO system in order to telework, to get that permission to say, hey, I don't feel very well. However, I am okay to still work at home. So I have to go through an avenue to say, hey, yeah, we recommend that you do work from home, and this is okay. So this again adds to the greater flexibility in managing the family responsibility. And so the next thing is support. I believe to reduce the work-life conflict, support. So we have to promote a culture of work-life balance. So this encourages employees to take breaks, avoid excessive overtime, and prioritize self-care. So say, for instance, if a person is at home, working from home, and they're in front of their computer, they probably want to take a break every hour, and move around and get some blood flow going, because after that, anything after that, then it becomes consuming to their time. And so we want to move away from that. We want them to be able to still do their job and be at their best level of health, So this is called self-care. So take those breaks under the support and recognizing and rewarding work-life balance efforts. You need to acknowledge and celebrate the employees who successfully manage their work life and responsibilities. So by doing that, you let them know, hey, I understand that you're working from home, but you have done a phenomenal job with all of the tasks that I've given you. And man, you're able to manage very well. And I'm grateful for that. Thank you. And this is where the supervisor or higher leader tells them that. So we have to acknowledge and celebrate them. And lastly, supportive leadership. This is so important. Again, this is another reason why I chose the organizational side of it, because leadership is most important. So the leadership train managers and leaders to understand and to know how to accommodate. So they encourage the leaders to be empathetic and flexible when employees face family-related challenges. So removing the personal biases and saying, hey, this person needs to take care of their child or grandmother or mother, etc. Remove those biases and say, hey, go take care of your business, get back with me and we'll talk. So being supportive is so important through the leadership. And then also lead by example. So senior leaders should model a healthy work-life balance to set a positive tone for the organization. So it's not do as I do as I say, but as just like children emulate what they see, and coworkers will look at their leader and emulate the same behavior. So as a senior leader or a leader, lead by the example. And I learned this when I was in the military, lead by an example, because you're always being watched. And so as a leader, lead from the front. and understand that a person's health, especially through their work life, is most important. And keep that in the forefront of your mind as a leader. So this moves me to chapter 5. So this is where I imagine you have been asked to develop a performance assessment program through development. And so it asks, what techniques would I use to adequately evaluate the employee's performance as comprehensively as possible? So it says to think of Murphy's List. So Murphy's List was found in our reading on page 141. So the end role is the task-oriented behavior. And so with that, I would do a self-assessment. This is where I would ask the employees to assess their own performance. Like, really remove the bias and really ask yourself, am I really doing what is necessary? And am I aware of needing to improve my work performance? And so this will provide valuable insight into their self-awareness. Self-awareness is most important because self-awareness allows you to self-assess and be self-aware of you. And so that way you can do the self-assessment and do some adjusting within you, and then it helps the environment. It aids in moving the environment into a positive direction. The next thing is the extra role. So this is has 3 areas. So the first one is the interpersonally oriented behaviors. So this is this 360-degree feedback. So in the military or in the government, we do a 360 feedback, which is awesome because you get to send it to your supervisor, you get to send it to like leaders that's one step up, your peers. And so what it does, it's like a collective feedback from multiple sources, like peers, subordinates, and external stakeholders, like to gain a holistic view of an employee's performance. So it's not just coming from one source, it's coming from multiple sources. And what it does, it gives you a really good measurement of how you can identify those interpersonal oriented behaviors and teamwork skills, what you're good at. So some might be good at leadership. Some may have the most important thing, good listening skills. Good listening skills is very important. And some people really strive to have good listening skills because they can understand how to move from one space to another in an efficient and welcoming and it welcomes the environment to say, hey, that person will listen, so let's go talk to them. The next one is the downtime behaviors. So this is a behavioral observation that I will use. So I will use trained observers to monitor the employee's behavior in the workplace. So this can identify like the downtime behaviors and destructive, hazardous behaviors that might go unnoticed otherwise. So the person is there and the employees are unaware, and you may be able to see how that person is in their downtime. So some people like to really read, some people like to really get on social media, and they may have some destructive, hazardous behaviors that doesn't line up with the original blueprint of what they signed up to do for their organization. And this is where this is very visible. And then lastly, the destructive hazardous behaviors. So this is where behavioral assessment will be done. And excuse me. And so this will validate the behavioral assessment overall. And so this is where they gain insight into an employee's tendency and their traits. And it just lets them know where their traits, which traits are more they're stronger in. So, in their performance, some may speak very well, some may brief very well, some like to be behind the scenes and do most of the outlining and work for a, per se, if we're doing a brief, you might have a person that just doesn't want a brief, but they put the curriculum together or put the PowerPoint together very well, but they do not want a brief. So this again allows them to really know behavior wise, because they may be an introvert. They may not like to get in front of the office personnel and talk. However, they have the ability to put it all together to make it come out very wonderful. And so this moves me to chapter 6, where the question is, what are some possible common organizational conflicts? How could they lead to counterproductive behaviors? So common organizational constraints can vary depending on the type of organization, its size, industry, or specific circumstances. However, there are several constraints that are frequently encountered in many organizations, and they can indeed lead to counterproductive behaviors. So I wanted to read that because the definition of understanding what common organization constraints are. So like myself, I work for the military. I work for the U.S. government, and that itself organization is huge. Now, within my footprint of where I work, it may be smaller, but however, the overall common organization itself is huge. And so one thing that I face most of the time at work is resource constraints. So money, budget. They always talk about budget constraints. So this is when organization may face tight budget constraints. So in the government, we have until the month of October, because that starts the new fiscal year. So by that fiscal year, you should have exhausted and spent that pertinent amount of money that has been allocated to you by that October. And if you don't, then of course you may lose funding for the next year. So it can lead to cost-cutting measures. So they'll downsize the amount that they give you. And that, again, affects the morale of the employees, because now I may not be able to get the supplies that I needed, that I've always was able to get every year. And so this, again, hurts the job satisfaction and the ability to invest in necessary resources. So again, coming into work, no, it's not your home, but you would like to be comfortable. You would like to use certain things to get the job done, i.e. sticky notes. Some people are not able to afford sticky notes in their organization. However, that sticky notes is important for that person who is always thinking of something to say, hey, I need to stick that right there. So resource constraints is very, very important, and that's a issue within big organizations. The next thing is time constraints. So tight deadlines, unrealistic or consistently tight project deadlines, can result in rushed work, decreased quality, and increased stress among employees. So instead of saying, hey, we've downsized from 10 to 6 people, we cannot manage the workload that we're currently managing, can we please move this deadline out? Instead of still trying to pressure that 6-person for a 10 personnel workload, let's downsize some of their workload, and let's probably move this, deadline back. But this one for sure, I really deal with myself with tight deadlines, or, just the ability to really not think realistically, like, can we make this happen? And this is where the supervisor comes in and have to really sit down and talk to the employees and get their side of it and say, hey, can we do this, team? Are we able to push this through? And get a north and south from them and say, yes, we can do this. So, and be realistic as we're going into it. The next thing is information constraint. Lack of information sharing. So this is where there's a lack of transparency or information sharing within an organization. And the employees may not make uniform decisions, leading to mistakes or inefficiencies. So they only tell you what they possibly can see in their purview or in their footprint. Or they tell you what you would like to hear in order for you to get the job done or move in an organization. And so to me, that causes issues. Give me the end state, give me the holistic idea that we're trying to achieve. And let us conceptualize it and then move forward with it. But if I don't ever get the holistic idea of it, then how can I really realistically go into it and say, hey, yeah, we can do this? So lack of information, small amount of information can lead to the employees plugging what they believe should happen or has happened is going to happen. So having that transparency with your employees is so important because it really causes some very, very stressful constraints. And so how could they lead to counterproductive behavior? So these constraints can lead to counterproductive behaviors such as resistance to change. Why should I want to change when I know that you're going to give me bare minimum of information and I have to do the best that I can with it? So, and now I'm not motivated. This decreases the motivation in the workplace. This decreases the motivation holistically. You may have that one employee that no matter what adversities they're faced with, they can come into work with a smile on their face. However, holistically, it does tend to start rubbing off if the whole motivational, it passes on to each person. And so this in turn does lower the job satisfaction. I'm undervalued. I'm not valued. So why should I work hard to get a product out and I'm not valued? Increased stress. Stress, we all need a little bit of stress, but undue stress or minimize stress is best for the workplace. Even the unethical actions in some cases, there are some unethical things that can cause an employee to say, hey, I witnessed something that was very unethical and I'm not comfortable with it. I don't know if I want to work here anymore. Because of the second and third order effects, I may be called in to talk to that person about it or talk to an investigator. I don't want to be in that position. That's something that's very prevalent in the workplace that I work in, and being in a big organization like that. And it goes back to that leadership and the integrity that person has as a leader. So it's essential for organizations to recognize and address these constraints, to create a healthier and more productive work environment. So to me, it starts with each person, each time they come in the morning or they start their workday. What can I do to make the environment better? So this ends my presentation. Thank you so much for your time.